As always, I'm live and ready to go again. Yesterday I didn't want to make a video because of what was said in the previous video. But tonight or early in the morning technically, I'm about to make another video. And this one is, hopefully not too difficult to talk about. So, let's get into it, folks. Alrighty, so we left off on chapter 10 and 11. Well, now we're going to go into chapter 12. And it's going to be very short. Chapter 12, and yes, I cannot sleep at the moment, so I'm going to be awake for a bit. So right now, sit tight and enjoy the stream. Let's just get on to it. Chapter 12, the new Brian Joseph Argo. This chapter is what follows from 11. This one is very easy to follow in the footnote in Brian's life. From Brian Joseph Argo, date 11/4/12. Brian Joseph Argo is finally back now, with a lot of love of God. Brian J. Argo states, "This was a day I was saved by the fatherly Lord God. It was a triumphant day, a day I was washed my sins I have made. The deal with the devil was gone. My old life of being sad, all the time gone. To start over born again. This was a great day. Plus, to add, my father was there to see me saved. It was a great day to start in a walk in the light of the Lord, to stay happy and very sad. Always happy in my walk with the Lord, to follow his path that He has given me. Thank you, God, for your help over my darkness I had before I gave it to you." Brian was new, happy and ready to take back the world again, to have many new things become better for our young man. To his steps he walked. This was an easy page to say about, but more to come. Well, the boy Brian Joseph Argo was saved. And he was happy. Not sad, not miserable, happy. He stepped out of the darkness of his past and his sins. He got better. As time progresses, chapter 13 is the stepping stones to that. So we'll go into chapter 13, The Conqueror. The story I'm about to tell you about Brian are yet small, yes. But this tells you what happens at these dates and time where life for Brian was going very well for him. On Sir Brian Joseph Argo, dated 1/2/13, I met a friend that is really close to me for the first time in my life. Brian meets a girl that becomes a girlfriend, a girl that he would date for a year but not see as much. This was a girl who actually wanted Brian for him, nobody else. She would make him smile every time they messaged each other, but at what cost to him? Time that he didn't have to make with. It was the first taste of what a girl meant to him, nobody else. Now, I don't recall this too much. I think it's, instead of it being the 2nd, I think it's the 20th, to my understanding. But, yeah, can't sleep. Anyways, another entry log from Brian J. Argo, date 2/11/13. First time being in a good fight this year. Brian gets into a fight at school because the guy was talking shit to him. Then Brian got mad, and then he made a. Then Brian got mad, and they had a moment. Not much said. From Brian J. Argo, date 2/14/13. First time I had a girlfriend on Valentine's Day. First time Brian had someone for Valentine's Day to think about, because he had never get any girl for that day, for this day. It just happened that year. Another date, from Brian J. Argo, dated 3/9/13. I was granted into the OA period time. Now maybe. And OA means Order of the Arrow. It's another club in the Boy Scouts. But it'll explain more. This day in Boy Scouts, Brian could have taken the offer to join the Order of the Arrow, but he refused. He was not ready to do more in the Boy Scouts because he was working on his Eagle Scout rank during this time. Another date of his, Brian J. Argo, date 3/19/13. I had a good close friend of mine die from a bad way out of this world. And the first time to do community service on 3/19/13 till 3/21/13. And very do it again. Very boring to me. Again, very boring to me. This was a sad time from Brian's eyes. He just got word of a girl he was close with died. Car crash. Took his friend's life. Her name was Erica, Nicole's cousin. It was during spring break when it happened. She was drinking with friends, and they crashed the car, and she died a few days later. But after this, Brian had to do community service for 24 hours to make sure his name was not in the law with his fight at school. It was boring to him, but his name was clean from the law. Another date 3/4 Brian from Brian Joseph Argo, date 4/13/13. I had a chance to go to prom but missed out, so I hanged in Springdale that night with my family next time. Okay. Brian was a junior. He could have went to prom, but he didn't have has but he didn't. He has no point of going there. No date or girlfriend, so no. He was hanging out with Wes and his family in Springdale that night instead. Now he did have a girlfriend at this time, but girlfriend couldn't really go out much, so he set out prom away. Um, Another entry log. Brian J. Argo, date 4/22/13. I'm done with football forever. Now still it goes to my grave now. He had to leave football to earn his Eagle Scout rank, because the Boy Scouts was better than playing another year of football. Brian J. Argo, dated 10/1/13 to 10/31/13. Now this was a time in Brian that I had to add in. During this time of Brian's life, he was gone. Gone. His body was on earth, but his mind was not here with us. His mind was in 3 different places. Brian claims that he was having a spiritual war with inside of himself. Every year in October, Brian is not the same. To know he was gone spiritually, fight this war with himself to this day. Brian doesn't remember at any part of this year or any other time in October. 2 years, 2 years to come. This is a strange thing that have happened when he had a deal with the devil and was saved the year before. To this note, Brian is not Brian in October. To this, Brian is the same in the body, but not in the mind. So to wrap up in chapter 13, it's just entry logs. They're all fairly easy to follow. Basically, there's just different events that happen throughout the year. Not much to explain. And we'll press on. Chapter 14, the year of 2014. Brian J. Argo, date 2/27/14. Earns Eagle Scout rank in Boy Scouts. This was a triumphant day in Brian's life. He made to the highest rank of Eagle Scout in Boy Scouts, something that most men don't earn easy. This day was always to be. This day will always to be rewarded to him. He thinks now of this as being an Eagle Scout was hard, and thinks he could take over the world. Because now he knows what it takes to get the job done now. On Brian J. Argo, date 3/3/14. I lost my phone from my grandpa. Young dumb Brian was with his grandpa, lost his phone for 2 weeks. Yeah, no, very simple. Brian J. Argo, date 5/15/14. My mom came to see me finish high school and got my first tattoo. This time, his mom came out to Arkansas to see Brian graduate high school, but got his first tattoo as a graduation present from his mom. Then spent a lot of time with his mother as she was here to visit too. Alright, from Brian J. Argo, date 5/16/14. I finally finished high school, class of 2014. Brian graduated high school on this day here in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Not much said, say, I just said it. Brian J. Argo, date 5/17/14. My day of being an Eagle Scout came to the end. Brian's best part of his Boy Scout day, where he was given the rank of Eagle Scout to see his mother there, is what made his day. To add on in this, every time when in boy would earn his Eagle Scout rank, Brian would cry for everyone that made it. Because Brian didn't have the love of all his mom or dad there to see him earn that rank. Then other note, he gave out his mentor pins to show how much these people meant to him. As a Boy Scout or young man outside of the Scouts, so he became an Eagle Scout officially with a Court of Honor on 5/17/14, and basically he would cry just about every single time when somebody else was getting their Eagle Scout pins and so forth because their moms and dads were there. And Brian would cry because he'd never think he had his mom there to see him earn that pin. So, but we'll carry on. From Brian J. Argo, date 5/29/14. The ex-wife. This is a good one for a beer. This time of Brian's life is where he met his first ex-wife. But before then, it was an ex-wife. Girlfriend happened. Brian was a young man and knew better from his life. He met the woman, Stephanie Denise Graham. This wouldn't be known that she killed Brian's life and would give him one child that Brian hasn't seen in a long time. Because his ex-wife of now don't talk to anymore because of what happened she did to him. Before they were a happy couple. To keep this short, Brian didn't want to talk about this past of his life to him. It should not happen. Ooh, that's a good way to talk about the future ex-wife. Wow, he must have had a interesting theory why I could not ask him these questions. He'll carry on. From Brian J. Argo, date 7/9/14. Living on my own. This was too early in Brian's life here in his life story. This is when Brian and Stephanie Denise Graham started to live together. Well, I don't know how else to explain that one. Explains itself. From Brian J. Argo, dated 7/17/14. First job. Brian's first real job, Little Caesars Pizza, here in Rogers, Arkansas. Wow, that was pretty self-explanatory. From Brian J. Argo, date 11/14. Stephanie was pregnant with Brian's child. Oh, that's cool. So to round up 14, Brian had a great beginning of the 2014 year. Until he met his ex-wife, and then everything fell apart. The end. Pretty much. Bowls it up to that point. Now, we can get into chapter 15 because I have a bit more time to explain. I mean, a bit more time now. Let's talk about 2015. Chapter 15, The New Journey of 2015. All right. This past of Brian's life is very important of how he is now. During this time, he was moved out of his grandpa's house and away from his dad. But this is the year where he became a loss in his faith of the Lord and everything he stood for. To start this time in his life, he will go back to the start of 2015. Stephanie was pregnant with Brian's child, and at the end of the year, he popped the question to her. She said yes to marry Brian. Too young to start a family, too young to get married. Brian was not seeing clearly. His own deception has found this way and got to Brian. With these things happened, like Brian's almost cheated on his soon-to-be wife and child, young and dumb as this saying goes. He also made a mistake in his life that it didn't happen. But more came to Brian's life. But also great things happened too. He got a new job with Walmart for one, but as soon to be wife lost her job because of her having a baby. They also found it was a little girl was supposed to be born later. So Brian is all stressed out with life. He made a few mistakes and not looking for the goal in his life. This goal in his life was to sit down and have a small family because he feared that he would never find a girl that would love as him as a man. So this stress he had happened in the wrong reasons. But this is a lie. This is life. Soon to say. Brian and Stephanie went to OBGYN doctor to know when they should be getting ready for their new baby in the world. This is when they found out they had a problem with the soon-to-be mother. She had to go as soon as they could go in. So Brian and Stephanie had to go in later that day. For about 24 hours, the child, a little girl, was born on this earth. Her name was Serenity Leanne Argo. She was a big girl of about 8 pounds, 7 ounces. So she was healthy, but there was a C-section. That C-section was the only way to bring her into this earth. A loss of blood and pain, but a happy day in July. Date of July 21st, 2015. This is the day of Serenity Leanne Argo, is when she was born. Brian cried over times of holding her and would sleep next to her as she was so small. Now she is so much bigger, 3 years, 9 months. Now, when this was being written of this documentation of Brian's life, but a very happy day for them. Then about a month later, Brian and Stephanie getting married at Brian's church, where all the happy people were there, that there were for them, no one else, just a happy day to see two people there to make one family, one in a family, just lots of people waiting for them to get married, but at a cost later in Brian's life. To this day was a very great day, but later, not the best time to live. So, chapter 15 is where all the mistakes were made. A lot of mistakes were made, except for one. Serenity Land was not a mistake. Everything else was a mistake. Brian getting married too young. Brian being a father too young. All mistakes that young people do in their life. You just learn and live and learn when you get older. There's nothing for him to do about it. He decided to just deal with it. Built him a lot of stress all in 2015. And now we're about to hit to another sad part of his life. Chapter 16. The loss of the father Argo. Well, I don't want to put this lightly, but it has to be said. It has to be said. Oh, here we go. Chapter 16. The loss of Father Argo. After coming back on a small trip with his new wife, Brian had a call. This call is what makes Brian so sad, and this is the way he doesn't want to be called Brian anymore. Brian had to go to St. Mary's Hospital here in Rogers, Arkansas. His father was at the deathbed. The doctor told him how bad it really was. Brian came in wondering where his dad was at. They showed him the way to his room with his grandpa next to him. Brian was ready for work, but this time, no work. Brian stayed at the hospital all day to know there was a choice for his dad. What happened was that his grandfather himself were put into a room with a doctor. The doctor gave them each a choice. One, pull the plug and end his life, or two, let him come to in 3 days. Brian's dad had cancer all over his body. To this note, Brian only had 2 life choices to make. Let his dad die, or try to see if he could live. His choice was to let his dad die, because his dad had been through enough on this earth, so he would not have any more pain to live again. Brian told the doctor to let them pull the plug at midnight to let everyone know what was going on with his father at the hospital. But the day was long for Brian. All ready to go to work, instead he had to stay in the hospital. For this dad to just hold his hand till death, so the good Lord could take him and let him go. Not stay here, let him go, so he could honor him later. So much of that day Brian cried, was greeted by a lot of who heard about his father dying. So everyone stand there for little Brian and his dad, Big Brian. So a long day and night as he watched his dad pass away to the other side of the gates. To this, Brian choice was hard. For a boy of 19, he was a boy to have the power of life or death cost something more than life. To this, he ended up watching a dead body all day and night. About midnight, he passed. He was he left the hospital to get sleep. So he left to no he knew he lost his parent. The next day, his father passed away around 5 a.m. that day. Then the day became the longest day of his life. To say this, all you gotta know from this, losing a parent, it's not easy. Doesn't matter how old you get, losing a parent is not an easy thing, especially if you have the choice of letting them live or die. It's not easy. It's very difficult. It can affect you later down the road, wondering if it was the right choice or not, wondering if maybe we should let him live longer. Maybe we should have. To this note, whatever the choice was made, it was made. I don't want to see anybody go through the same pain as I have, but those days will come where your parent is lying in the hospital waiting to die, and you have no choice but to let him go or let him try to live through it. But in the experience, it's just easier to let him go. Just let them all go. Would I make that decision again? No. I've already done it once, and I'm not doing it again. I have no reason to do it again. It already hurts the first time. So why make it worse? Like I said, it's already hurt once. Why make the pain last longer than it should? To this note, Brian's life has changed a lot. He's not a boy anymore. He's a man making the toughest calls and losing his way. It's not easy when you're forced into a situation where you have no options left. With no options, you are completely screwed. But that's the life. Kind of sucks. It is the life. No one no one should ever go through that life, but have to someday to learn to be a better man. And he learned to be a better man after that year. It's hard for him to trust people, but he easily can fall in love with someone. He's a great guy overall. You should treat him with respect more often than not. But we'll soon see how these chapters will still keep progressing as time goes by. Till then, another time. And to add a note, we have we have quite a bit we still have to go through. Quite a bit left, but we'll get to that another time. Till then, sleep. And y'all have a good night, or good morning, or afternoon.